Welcome, everyone, and you are in for an incredible surprise, which is going to be one of the companies that probably you've never heard of before, but it's one of the most critical and important companies in the world of energy and energy transition. It's a pleasure to have the CEO of Power Electronics with us today, David Salvo. Allow me to spend 30 seconds giving a brief bio of David. David is the CEO of Power Electronics, which is a world energy storage leader. More on that afterwards. He has more than 25 years of experience in operations and general management, being one of the shareholders and a member of the family that owns the company, founded in 1987 by his father and two brothers. His professional career began in 1992, at the end of his senior year of high school in Oklahoma in Del City. He graduated in business administration from the University of Valencia in 1996. He joined Power Electronics in 1997, going through various positions, and in 2004 he was named CEO, a position from which he has led the holding company, driving its international growth through the creation of 25 new subsidiaries around the world, and making a strong investment in R&D for the development of value-added products with 24-hour service. So with that, David, what is Power Electronics? From, I would say, 99% of the people here that don't know what Power Electronics is.
Now it's easier to understand since we had a problem in Spain. It happened the same in the U.S. when we had the blackout in Texas. So we do power conversion systems. So any photovoltaic installation, solar plant, or now energy storage has an inverter, a power conversion inverter that moves energy from DC to AC into the grid. So we control the grid now. And in the last years, well, I don't know if that is more or less what we do, right? And we do power conversion systems, which is power electronics, as the name says, in high power and high voltage.
So allow me to go a little bit deeper. Share with us who are your main clients, what is what you do for them, and how critical is your part of the value chain in them delivering their product?
Yeah, okay. Our biggest customers are normally utilities, but it could be indirectly an investment bank or a fund. Everybody has been investing in energy, so every big fund has a subsidiary that is investing in renewables. In energy, basically, 80% of the new generation has been renewable globally because of the power generation and the utilities. They do whatever is more competitive. So in Europe, unfortunately, we don't have any incentives. We still have in the U.S., but we are the most critical component on that. Meaning, it's like in nuclear, you would never think about using technology that is not. Now we here in the U.S. FIOC, right? Foreign entity of concern. So we don't want to have in the grid companies controlling the grid that can switch it off or can kill it. Well, that happened in the U.S. It didn't happen in Europe. It is starting to. So we are the most critical component in the energy transition. So in electrifying the society, in having power here.
And your competitors, your main competitors are?
Well, our main competitors, the ones that are still alive on our sector, are mainly Chinese. So the few that, because I guess we have questions that are coming later, but we've been evolving. This is like AI. It has evolved very quick, right? That is, in the last 15 years, the technology has been evolving and changing, and every 2 years you needed to release a new product, otherwise you were not competitive and you were out. So our major competitors are Huawei. Do you know Huawei? Are you familiar with? I don't want to make promotion on competitors, but I do name that player because they are not in the U.S. They are banned in the U.S. They are not in Spain or in Europe. Now we are seeing in the Baltic countries, for instance, they are starting to be afraid of using Chinese technology into the grid because they are connected to Russia. So they are switching off from Russia connections, and they don't want to have Chinese technology into the grid because they see the war way closer than we sit in southern Mediterranean, in the beach. So we are part of that European and American technology that still make it competitive, that can be cheaper than gas, way cheaper than gas, and we don't need a foreign entity of concern to do your projects that you are investing, for instance, competitive and to pay back the loans. So I don't know if I answered that.
No, absolutely. And to that point, just imagine, and this is to the audience, just imagine that you are, running, or you are the pilot of a fighter jet, and this is the example that we were discussing before, and you were saying.
I mean, it's not the most expensive component that you have within the plane or the carrier, but it's critical, right? We are kind of the same.
Exactly. So just imagine that, and the GPS, for whatever reason, is from a foreign country, not to be named, and that foreign country decides to either switch it off or, bring
or even
in
worse. It could be even worse. We have over 70 gigawatts of capacity deployed, and AC capacity, nominal. If you go to energy storage, which the average is between 2-4 hours, these are many. I mean, we're talking about many nuclear sites in power. So we imagine how much we can do into the grid by injecting harmonics, voltage disruptions. So it's a safety concern. I mean, energy is not only switching on the lights, it's energy concern. And then we're going to talk about AI, what's coming. I'll give you my ideas.
Oh, absolutely. So you are at the forefront of energy and energy transition and clean and sustainability. What are the trends that you're seeing now building out of earlier panels?
Yeah, I mean, we are leaders in the U.S. mainly because in 2018 we were the only ones and the first ones that decided to sacrifice a bit of cost on solar. I mean, being less competitive on the solar side of the business, which was 90% of our business in those days, to have a common platform, to have a technology that goes up to 1,500 volts, which solar didn't need that voltage. It was 1,300, it was lower, and also be bidirectional. Semiconductors, I mean, we're talking about semiconductors on controls like NVIDIA and everything we use on computing. But we are living a different disruption, which is high power semiconductors, which are similar but different. And we needed those semiconductors to be ready for the new technologies. I mean, they needed to be designed, they needed to be specified, designed, and certified, right? We needed to test it. So during those years, we've seen many competitors destroyed because of that technology not working and having problems on the field. We've seen it in wind, and we've seen it in solar. So in energy storage, it's even more complex because you're putting power to the grid, and you're buying power and selling power. So this is the perfect world. The only way to store storage was hydro and that's it. I mean, the energy was produced and then distributed. Now we can control it for the first time. So in 2018, we decided to do a product that could be compatible for both technologies, solar, and we were the only ones doing it, by the way. So that's what led power electronics to be the choice of many customers, right? And because we were the first ones to heavy invest on R&D in that sector when energy storage was nothing. I mean, 7 years ago it was like, okay, are we doing the right thing? Because
So deep diving a little bit on energy storage, it's often called the missing link in the energy chain, right? What breakthroughs are you seeing, and how do you see that space developing in the next 18, 24 months?
Well, I can tell you my own numbers, right? We used to be, when we started, was zero in 2018, very little, a few hundred megawatts. And right now, in 2025, it's going to be 70% of energy storage, 30% solar. So in many countries where energy is already close to zero price during, I don't know, if like in California, you have the dark shape of the power energy curve, and during the middle of the day, the energy is zero price. So you need to store that and then produce it and put it back into the grid whenever everybody's back home, switch on air conditioning and so on. So what we are saying is that energy storage today in the US is 30%, 50% of the new generation is being solar, but that is going to change. In Spain, for instance, I can give you, since we are talking about Chile, we can talk about many other American countries, energy storage is going to be the predominant solution because you have a capacity, excess of capacity of generation, which is renewable, is the cheapest way, and you can use it whenever you want. So why? Because the batteries are, and then we get into the politics, the price of it is being already competitive, right? You don't need subsidies to do it. So the only thing is that you need a regulatory grid that gives you the comfort that that is going to be sustainable for the next 20 years, because the cost of solar is going to be always the same, right? I mean, unless the sun disappears. So it's going to be there. So storing that energy whenever you don't need it is, this is what we saw many years ago, that what's coming, what we didn't foresee is that such a rapid growth, what happened. So right now the US is 30% storage, but that's going to flip over in the next 2-3 years. And from 2027, when the tariffs, I mean, when the incentives, the tax credits are gone, storage will continue. And I will explain you why.
Fantastic.
Not because of incentives only, but because of the need of it.
The need of it. And in this particular point, how do you balance in this very fast-paced sector environment, and obviously without energy there's no life, there's basically nothing. How do you balance innovation with reliability, safety, building on the topics that we're saying, the blackout that in Texas, in Spain?
Well, I can give you my own experience. We had to replace 100% of our IGBTs. IGBT is the bipolar transistor, is a semiconductor, high-power semiconductor I was talking about. We needed to replace 100% of them. Why? Because they were defective. And why? Because we were pushing it to the specification. We were not, it's like transformers. They are a supply chain problem. And in our sector, distribution, in utilities, they normally have a power factor of utilization of 70%, 30% is oversized, always. You never use it, full power. In our sector, everything is full power. You wake up in the morning, radiation goes up, 100%, full power. 120 degrees during 4 months in Arizona, California, and it happens. So we had to survive that situation because its reliability wasn't the best, right? Because it was a new technology. I mean, it is a new sector. I mean, we changed in the last, we entered in 2009 in renewables. It totally changed from a technology point of view, from a players. So we suffered a lot. Our competition suffered even more. We fixed it, other ones didn't. Right now, the technology has been stabilized. Now we are seeing silicon carbide, new semiconductors coming on board. That will take 2, 3, 4 more years, but we have much more experience. I mean, we learn a lot.
Right. Oh,
So,
and where do you see the greatest opportunities of collaboration between the US and Spain? And actually, US is your largest market.
yeah,
today.
well, I mean, we are actually we are 60% of our business is the U.S. in 2025. So around $1 billion of what we do is here, and I mean, I'm here half of my time. So I mean, the U.S. for us is my home, right? And many times I've been saying my customers, I feel more American company than European from the support point of view, because we've been more kind of protected from a technology point of view, and because there's been tariffs. I mean, the tariffs are not new in the U.S. for our competitors coming out of China, right? I mean, they already had it, not in Europe. So, I mean, I think the new collaboration that we're going to see, and we are starting to see, is going to be more related to the grid operation. Because we are setting challenges that are related to new introduction of consumer. I mean, the consumers are going to change. It's not the home consuming, it's going to be the industrial consuming is going to change. And the grid operator are going to find new challenges, not only because of using renewables, but also with gas. And I think we are starting to see that more not only European or Spanish and American corporation, but more international, because the country that was leading grid performance because of the problem. I mean, when you find a country that is having a blackout, this is the one that advanced the most. So the first ones having that problem was Australia. And they are the ones more advanced on modeling the grid. And before connecting anything, they know how it is affected. So you need to invest a lot of engineering. That's why we are leaders in Australia, because there are more technology barriers than any other country in the world. So you got to do things in Australia that you don't do in the US or in Europe. But now with the new grid codes, this is changing. If then, for instance, if the new grid code was applied 1 year ago or 6 months ago, we wouldn't have the blackout in Spain. Easy, without a storage, only with solar. So we are going to see more cooperation from a grid operation point of view. And that, because the problems we're going to face, somebody else has seen it already.
Yeah, that's fascinating. We cannot have a conversation nowadays without AI. So what role do you see for AI in your company, in your space, and on an overall basis?
Well, I mean, data centers have been in the US, less in Europe, but they've been big industry in the US for many years. But the way they operate are totally different to AI. I mean, I guess you already hear on the news that this is like switching. I mean, imagine that half of the country is switching on and off lights all the time. So this is how the new the new computer systems are working in AI. So it's fast, it's consuming a lot of gigawatts. So we are talking about predictions of new 100 gigawatts of new generation that we need in the US. More, I mean, is it a bubble or not? The reality is that we have utility customers that they cannot keep up. We are having investors, and some of them are public, you can Google, that are going to do off-grid because the grid is not capable of withstand such a load. I mean, imagine having a 1 gigawatt of nominal power and then go down to 700, then go up. I mean, that fluctuation, the grid is not ready to, in many cases, is not ready to manage it. So it depends what it is. That's why they are talking about switching on, new nuclear, all nuclear back because they need more stability. But even with that, you need all the technologies. And we are seeing that even on AI, off-grid projects, using gas is not enough. You need energy storage. You need that fluctuation has to be down, but it has to be, reduced.
Yeah.
So the batteries, what we are doing is, and that is a new technology that a few years ago you couldn't do it right now, but with the new grid forming, virtual inertia blackout software that we have put into our inverters, you can do things that, and you can do AI when a few years ago you couldn't even imagine. So that's reality. It's coming in the next years.
And linked to that, if you could highlight one innovation, one development that could potentially transform or be a kind of a catalytic innovation in energy and energy transition in the next 5-10 years, what would you think?
If we are talking about what could happen with fusion, what could happen with hydrogen, but these are things that I've been listening for 20 years. It's going to happen. But when? So what I believe it's what's happening today, and it's transforming the way we do generate power, and we are storing the power, we are controlling the power, we are controlling the grid, so we can forecast what's going to happen, and we can model. We can have basically. Javier and Jaime, they've done a presentation that probably they just say it all, right? We are going to see in the next years an energy sector that is going to continue doing the same. We don't see many changes from a technology point of view, basically because what is growing is energy storage. We're going to store the energy, and then we're going to balance the grid. In order to have AI, that's the major challenge. If we didn't have AI, probably we wouldn't need as much power because the industry is not growing that much.
We have a couple of questions left, but what advice would you give policymakers?
That's an answer that I was thinking, on the way here. I think the regulators the grid is, and the energy is a sector that is strategic, right? And there are politics behind it because if you have gas, you have power, right? That's what traditionally happened over the years, and the U.S. happens to have gas. So you need gas, right? It is true that giving money to foreign entities indirectly with subsidies that they don't need doesn't make sense, right? But at the same time, what, for instance, energy, storing energy was related to, a computer, domestic, batteries. It was commodity. It wasn't important because you do it whenever it's cheap. It's just easy to do a battery. It is, right? It was easy, but when you have to make gigawatts and a lot of batteries, it becomes the new oil and gas, right? So what I suggest is, okay, yeah, I mean, here in the U.S. probably they are doing things a bit more protective than in Europe. And the sector, I don't think is going to stop because of, at the end, if you put tariffs and you continue with tariffs, you're going to have the PPAs, the power purchase agreements. The cost of energy is going to increase a little bit. So inflation, I guess, over the years won't be maintained. I mean, energy is key for industries to be competitive in energy. So, I mean, if I was a legislator, I wouldn't stop renewables putting hurdles like in some cases they are doing, but I wouldn't. I think they can be sustainable like they are in other countries, right? I mean, so I don't think the U.S. I don't foresee. I wouldn't change actually. I mean, and I'm a renewable guy, so, but I'm not worried about technology because it's competitive already. It doesn't have to be made in China. I mean, not everything has to be made in China. Making a battery is easy. It's just capex. I mean, it's how much you're willing to pay. If the cost of energy doesn't have to be for free, it has to be for free. You got to do hydrogen. In order to introduce hydrogen, the cost of energy has to be very low. So, I mean, I'm not a legislator, so I'm just free. I believe in free trade in equal conditions. So as long as they keep the equal conditions between, and energy is strategic. I mean, it's safety, it's security. So it has to be controlled. You cannot let anyone do whatever they want. So I think more than in the U.S., I will go to Europe and say what they have to do rather than here.
Okay. Fair enough. In closing, and from a personal standpoint, David, what drives your commitment to power electronics, to your company, to your family company, and how do you see the role of your company in the next 5 years? That's the last question.
Yeah, I mean, I have passion on what I do personally. Right? I don't know if the second generation is gonna have the same, but we have a huge future. I mean, everything is electrified. We are not talking about EV anymore because it looks like it's going to disappear, but it will not. Once we see prices below ICE, I mean, combustion cars, everybody will buy an electric car. It's just a matter of time, and that's going to happen, and it will happen probably instead of 1 year, 2 or 3 years. It will take time, but it will happen. So it is very beautiful to wake up every day doing things that I think even, that makes a better world. And even if climate change doesn't happen, and because, I mean, we could argue that, because in Spain, for instance, we have in Atapuerca, one of the biggest prehistoric caves in the world, they used to have lions there. So I guess it was warmer before. So, and now it's cooler. They don't live there anymore. So I mean, we sometimes overestimate what man can do over the world, and in one day it can change because a volcano is putting more CO2 than we do in lifetime. But I think it's better to live in a better world, right? I mean, we leave something for a child that then, imagine New York City without smoke. It will be a different city. So, and it can happen. It's going to happen. This is going to happen for sure, 100%. So I think waking up every day and doing something that is nice makes you feel better than making weapons or something else. So we're going to continue. At least we're going to try to continue what we do, and we are growing every year double digit. So I think we are in a good spot.
Fantastic. With that, David, thank you very much.